Hi guys and welcome to Bookers. This is Amen and I'm really happy to creating podcast for you. Let's go for Huckleberry Finn Adventures Part 3. Huck and Jim travel south. For some days everything went along quietly, but we were getting bored. We wanted to know what was happening in town, and so I decided to go and find out. Jim said, "Why don't you wear the old dress and the hat that we found in the house? People won't know you. Then they will think you are a girl." And so I did. Just after it was dark, I got into the canoe and went up the river to the bottom of the town. There I left the canoe and went on foot. Before long I came to a little house which was always empty. Now there was a light on, and when I looked through the window I saw a woman of about 40. She was a stranger, and that was good because she didn't know me. So I knocked on the door. I must remember that I am a girl, I said to myself. The woman opened the door, came in, she said. She looked at me with her little bright eyes. "What's your name?" she asked. "Sarah Williams," I replied. "I am going to see my uncle on the other side of town. My mother is ill, you see, and she needs help." "Well, you cannot go there by yourself now. It's too dark. My husband will be home in about an hour. Wait for him, and he will walk with you." And then she began to tell me about all her troubles. I was getting bored with all this until she said something about Pop and my murder. "Who did it?" I asked. "Well," she replied, "some people said old Finn did it himself. Other people think it was a slave who ran away that night. His name was Jim. They will give $300 to anybody who finds him, and they will give $200 for old Finn. He got drunk and left town with two strangers. A lot of people think he killed his body, and he's going to come back one day and get all Huck Finn's money." "And what about the slave?" I asked. "Oh, they will soon catch them. People want the $300. I think he's on Jackson's Island. You know, I have seen some smoke there. My husband is going to get two of his friends, and they are going over there with a gun later tonight." When I heard this, my hands began to shake. The woman looked at me strangely, but then she smiled and said kindly, "What did you say your name was?" Mary Williams." "Oh," she said, "I thought it was Sarah." Well, yes, it is Sarah Mary Williams. Some people call me Sarah and some people call me Mary. You see." "Oh, do they?" She smiled again. "Come on now, what's your real name?" "Bill, Bob. I know you are not really a girl." So then I had to tell her another story with a different name, and I said I was running away. She said she wouldn't tell anybody and gave me some food before I left. I hurried back to the island and Jim. "Quick, Jim," I cried, waking him up. "They are coming to get us." We got out the raft as fast as we could, put our things on it, tied the canoe on behind, and moved off down the river. When it began to get light, we did, and hide. When it was dark again, we traveled on. On the fifth night, we passed St. Louis, and we decided to go on down to Cairo in Illinois, sell the raft there, and get a boat to Ohio. There are no slaves in Ohio. We slept for most of that day, and we began our journey again when it was dark. After some time, we saw lights on the Illinois side of the river, and Jim got very excited. He thought it was Cairo. Jim got the canoe ready, and I went off in it to take a look at those lights, but it wasn't Cairo. After that, we went on down the river. It was very dark that night and it wasn't easy to see where we were going. Suddenly, a big steamboat came at us very fast, and the next minute it was right over us. Jim and I jumped off the raft into the water. The boat hit the raft and went on up the river. When I came up out of the water, I couldn't see Jim anywhere. I called out his name again and again, but there was no answer. He's dead, I thought. Slowly I swam to the side of the river and got out. I saw that I was near a big old wooden house. Suddenly, a lot of very angry dogs jumped out at me. They made a terrible noise and someone called from the house. Who's there? George Jackson, I answered quickly. I have fallen off a riverboat. Well, the people who lived in that house were very kind and they took me in and gave me some new clothes and a good meal. I told them that my family were all dead. So they said I could stay with them as long as I wanted. It was a beautiful house and the food was good there, so I stayed. A few days later, one of the slaves in the house came to me and said, "Come with me." Together, we went down to some trees by the river. In there, he said, and went away. On the ground, I found a man asleep. It was Jim. I was really pleased to see him. When the steamboat hit the raft, Jim told me the raft didn't break up. Jim swam after it and caught it. Then he began to look for me. We decided to leave at once. It's alright living in a house for a little while, but you feel more free and easy and comfortable on a raft. Chapter 4: The Duke and the King. 2 or 3 days and nights went by and nothing much happened. We traveled at night when it was dark and everybody was asleep. We didn't want anybody to see Jim and ask questions about him. Then one morning just after it was light, I found a little canoe. So I got into it and went over to the side of the river. I was looking round when suddenly 2 men ran through the trees. "Help!" they cried. "There are men and dogs trying to catch us, but we have done nothing wrong." One of them was about 17 years old. The other was about 30, and they both had very old, dirty clothes. I said they could come with me, and we ran quickly back to the canoe. Back on the raft, we talked for a time, and then the young man said, "My friends, I think I can tell you my secret now. I am really a duke. My grandfather was the son of the Duke of Bridgewater, but he left England and came to America. When the old duke died, my grandfather's younger brother stole everything and made himself the Duke of Bridgewater. Well, of course, we were all very unhappy for our friend the Duke, but he said, 'I will be happier if you do things for me. Bring me my dinner.' So we did things for him, and he liked it. But the old man spoke very little, and he looked unhappy too. After a time, he said, 'You know, Bridgewater, I too have a secret,' and he began to cry. 'What do you mean?' the Duke asked. 'What's your secret?' And then the old man told us that he was really the first son of the King of France. He asked us all to go down on one knee when we spoke to him. We could call him Your Majesty, too. So that was what we did, and they were both happy. Of course, I knew that they weren't really a duke and a king, but I didn't tell Jim. It's best if everybody is happy when you are living together on a raft. The king and the duke were very interested in Jim. 'Is he a slave?' they wanted to know. 'Is he running away?' I had to tell them something, so I said that Jim belonged to my uncle and was taking me to my family in New Orleans. Well, we will travel down river with you. Then said the king, we will have a fine time together. So the four of us went on down the river, but Jim and I didn't like those two men. They were always getting drunk and making plans to get money out of people in every town. It's alright to take a chicken or something if you are hungry, but these men were really bad. Jim and I decided to get away from them as soon as we could. It wasn't easy because they wanted to be with us all the time. Then one morning the king went us into a town and told us to wait for him. We waited all morning and he didn't come back. So the Duke and I went into town to look for him. We looked all afternoon and in the end we found him in a bar, drunk, and then he and the Duke began to fight about some money. Now we can get away from them, I thought. I turned and ran back to the river. Quick, Jim, I shouted. It's time to go, but there was no answer. Jim wasn't there. I ran into the woods, crying and shouting Jim's name, but there was still no answer. Just then a boy came along. Have you seen a slave? I asked him, and I described Jim. Why, yes, the boy replied. He's a runaway slave? I heard all about it in town. A family called the Phillips have got him now. An old man in a bar told Mr. Phillips that there was a runaway slave on a raft down by the river. He said he hadn't got time to take the slave back himself. So Mr. Phillips gave him $40 and they went down and caught the slave this afternoon. The Phillipses are going to take him back to his owner and they will get $300 for him. I knew those two men were bad. I asked the boy where the Phillips lived and he said it was a big white house a little way down the river. I began to make plans to get Jim back. First, I took the raft and went down to a little island. I hid the raft under the trees and lay down to sleep. Before it was light, I went off down the river in the canoe. When I thought I was near the Phillips's place, I stopped, got out of the canoe and went up to the house. Suddenly a lot of dogs ran out. They came from everywhere and they made a terrible noise. A woman about 50 years old ran out of the house with some little children behind her. She was smiling all over her face and she took me by the hands and cried, "It's you! At last, isn't you?" I didn't stop to think. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "Well, what took you so long? We thought you were coming 2 days ago. Your uncle Silas goes to town every day to meet you. He's there now, but he will be back soon." She didn't stop talking and I couldn't tell her that she was making a mistake. "Tell us all about them," she cried. "Tell me everything." I knew then that I had to tell her, but just then she cried, "Here he is, quick, hide." And she pushed me inside the house and behind the front door. Then her husband came in and she asked him, "Has he come?" "No," her husband replied. "Look," she shouted, and then she pulled me out from behind the door. "Why, who's that?" Mr. Phillips cried, surprised. "It's Tom Sawyer," she laughed. The end of Chapter 4. Thank you guys for listening me. Don't forget to like and subscribe my channel and write down your comments and opinion about me and my channel on the comment box. Thank you so much and goodbye until tomorrow.